when life places us in situations where the pressure rises and emotions run wild, it is not always easy to stay calm. Yet it is in these very moments that our ability to control the inner world decides how we respond to the outer one. Today, I want to share with you 7 practical approaches to staying calm and collected under pressure. These are not theoretical ideas, but practices that you can take with you into your daily life. The first approach is when the mind is flooded with pressure and emotions run high. The first thing that begins to slip away is control over the body. In such moments, you will notice your heart rate rising, your palms, sweating, your chest tightening. These are signs that the body is preparing itself to fight or to flee. And this is what panic really is. If we remain caught in this automatic response, then we are no longer in charge of how we act. This is why the very first practical approach to remaining calm is to anchor yourself in the breath. The breath is something you always carry with you, and unlike the chaos outside it, remains a constant rhythm that you can return to by consciously choosing to slow the inhalation and extend the exhalation. You send a signal to the body that it no longer needs to remain in a state of alarm. The nervous system shifts gradually from agitation to regulation, and in this shift, you already create the possibility to think more clearly and to respond with more balance. The process is simple, but it requires attention. When you feel panic rising, close your eyes, if possible, and draw the air slowly into the belly instead of the chest. Let the abdomen expand with each inhale as though you are filling a vessel with calmness. Then let the exhale leave gently through the nose or mouth, as if you are allowing the tension to dissolve with it. Even if the situation around you does not change, the internal landscape begins to shift. Instead of shallow, hurried breaths that fuel anxiety, you create a steady stream that carries the mind back toward equilibrium. The more you repeat this practice, the more natural it becomes. Over time, the body remembers, and the breath itself becomes a refuge that you can access in any situation, no matter how pressured it feels. This anchoring in the breath is more than just a physical act. It is also a form of training for the mind. Each inhale teaches you to bring awareness into the present moment, and each exhale teaches you to release what you cannot control. In this rhythm, you realize that even when everything outside seems uncertain, there is still one thing you can guide from within. The storms of life cannot be stopped by your will alone, but by returning again and again to the breath, you strengthen the ability to stand in the middle of the storm without being carried away. It is a reminder that calmness is not found by eliminating challenges, but by cultivating the inner tools to meet them. The breath, therefore, is not only the starting point of calmness under pressure. It is also the foundation upon which all other approaches are built. The second approach is when pressure mounts. The second approach is to develop awareness without judgment. The difficulty many people face in moments of panic is not only the situation itself, but the rapid flood of thoughts that accompany it. The mind produces statements such as, "I cannot handle this," or "everything is collapsing," and those statements quickly become chains that bind us to fear. If you take those thoughts as truth, then panic deepens, because the mind has created a reality that feels inescapable. Awareness without judgment means that you step back from this process and observe the stream of thoughts without labeling them as good or bad, true or false. You simply acknowledge that the thoughts are there, but you do not have to become them. This small step creates distance, and in that distance, calmness can grow. It is like watching dark clouds move across the sky. You do not chase them, and you do not fight them. You allow them to drift while remembering that the sky behind remains open and clear. Training in this kind of awareness is not easy at first, because the habit of identifying with every thought is deeply ingrained. The moment panic arises, the natural impulse is to believe every fearful message the mind produces. But with practice you learn that a thought is only a thought and not a command. For example, if the mind says, "I cannot handle this," you can respond inwardly with the understanding that it is only a voice of fear, not the voice of truth. By practicing awareness without judgment, you weaken the power of those voices. They continue to appear, but they no longer dictate your actions. This way you are able to remain more stable even while the storm of panic continues around you. Awareness in this sense acts as a shield, not by blocking the storm, but by reminding you that you do not have to be swallowed by it. This approach also teaches you compassion toward yourself. Often in moments of panic, people add another layer of suffering by criticizing themselves for feeling anxious or weak. They think, "Why am I like this?" or "I should be stronger." And these judgments intensify the stress. Awareness without judgment removes this unnecessary burden. It allows you to simply notice what is happening in the body and mind without adding more resistance to it. You see the fear, and instead of condemning it, you acknowledge it like a passing guest. This simple shift reduces inner conflict and brings a surprising softness to the way you deal with yourself. Over time, this practice builds resilience because it shows you that panic is not an enemy to fight, but an experience to observe. When you learn to observe calmly instead of reacting blindly, you regain control over how you respond, and that is the essence of staying composed under pressure. The third approach is when panic arises, it often pulls us completely into the head, filling it with noise and racing thoughts that spiral faster than we can manage. The imagination paints extreme outcomes, and the body follows with tension as if those imagined scenarios are already real. This is why grounding through the body is a powerful approach to calmness under pressure. The body is always in the present, while the mind tends to run toward the past or future. By shifting attention down into the body, you return to a place of stability that is less affected by the storm of thoughts. One simple way to ground is to direct awareness to the soles of your feet and notice the contact they make with the ground. Even in a crowded room or in a stressful situation, the earth beneath you does not change. It remains solid and supportive. Feeling that contact reminds you that you are here in this moment, not trapped in the imagined catastrophes that the mind creates. You can also pay attention to the weight of your body, the sensation of your hands resting on your lap, or the slow expansion and contraction of your chest. Each of these anchors brings your awareness back from the storm in the head to the calm stability of the body. The more you practice grounding, the more you discover that the body is like a silent teacher of presence. It does not argue or create stories. It simply exists in the now. By placing your awareness there, you interrupt the cycle of panic that feeds on mental images of what could happen next. Instead of being swept away by fear, you feel your body as a steady foundation. From this foundation, you can breathe more deeply and act more wisely. It is almost like planting roots into the ground, so that when strong winds blow, you bend, but do not break. Without grounding, the mind is like a leaf carried in every direction by the storm, but with grounding, the mind becomes like a tree rooted firmly in the earth. This practice may appear simple, but it carries profound strength, especially in moments when everything around you feels uncertain. It shows you that calmness is not something you search for outside, but something you can reconnect with inside through the doorway of the body. The fourth approach is when the weight of pressure bears down on you, the mind tends to magnify the problem until it feels much larger than it truly is. A small issue suddenly appears like a mountain, and the sense of urgency grows to the point where you feel trapped. This is why clarity of perspective becomes such an essential approach to staying calm. Panic thrives in confusion and in the absence of clear vision. But when you step back and examine what is truly happening, the situation becomes less overwhelming. Ask yourself simple questions. What exactly is occurring right now? What part of this situation is within my control, and what part is not? By breaking the problem down into smaller and more defined pieces, you take away its power to consume you as one giant threat. This clarity allows the emotions to settle, because the mind no longer runs in circles around exaggerated scenarios. Instead of letting panic dictate the size of the challenge, you give yourself the chance to see it for what it really is. Even if the problem remains serious, your perspective is no longer distorted by fear, and from that position, you are more capable of making sound decisions. Clarity also helps you reconnect with logic when emotions attempt to rule over your choices. Under stress, the body's survival instincts push you toward impulsive reactions that may not actually solve anything. By pausing and deliberately creating space to assess the situation, you weaken the grip of those instincts. You begin to realize that not every demand requires an immediate answer. Not every challenge is as urgent as it appears in the heat of panic. Sometimes the wisest step is to wait a moment longer, to breathe and to let your vision clear before taking action. This perspective reduces unnecessary mistakes and prevents you from being dragged deeper into chaos by your own rushed responses. In this way, clarity is not just about seeing the problem clearly. It is also about creating the inner stillness required to act with wisdom. It shows you that pressure can distort, but it cannot control you if you learn to adjust your view and hold steady in the middle of uncertainty. The fifth approach, when fear builds inside the body, it often settles in the muscles, the chest, and the stomach, creating a heaviness that makes you feel trapped. This is why shifting your energy through movement is a powerful method to counter panic. The body and mind are not separate. When the mind is overwhelmed, the body becomes stiff, and when the body is locked, the mind struggles even more. If you remain frozen in that state, the cycle of panic strengthens, because the energy of fear has no outlet. To break this loop, you must introduce motion, even if it is something simple and subtle. Stretch your arms, roll your shoulders, walk slowly across the room, or gently shake out your hands. These physical actions may appear small, but they begin to release the tension stored inside the body. As the body loosens, the breath naturally becomes deeper, and the nervous system gradually shifts away from alarm. Movement is like opening a blocked channel, allowing the stagnant energy of panic to flow again. Once this flow is restored, the emotional storm loses much of its force and clarity begins to return. This approach also reminds you that calmness is not always found in stillness. Sometimes calmness is found in rhythm. Just as a river cleanses itself by flowing, you cleanse the body and mind by moving. Consider practices such as mindful walking, where each step is slow and deliberate, allowing you to feel the connection between your body and the ground. Even in situations where space is limited, you can practice controlled breathing combined with subtle body motions to guide your focus away from the storm of thoughts. Movement does not mean escape from the moment. It means transforming how you carry yourself within it. By shifting the posture of the body, by opening the chest and aligning the spine, you signal to the mind that you are not a prisoner of panic, but someone capable of meeting the challenge. In this way, movement becomes more than just a physical act. It becomes a language through which the body tells the mind, you are safe, you are stable, you are still in control. The sixth approach is the mind. Often spirals pressure. The mind often spirals into repeating phrases of self. Talk repeating phrases, weaken your confidence and feed the panic. You may hear yourself saying, I cannot handle this, or everything is falling apart. And these words carve deep grooves in your emotional state. The more you repeat them, the more powerless you feel. This is why using simple affirmations to stabilize the heart is such a valuable approach. Affirmations act as intentional words that interrupt the cycle of negativity and replace it with a message of strength. Phrases like, I am capable, or this moment will pass, do not erase the situation, but they reshape how you stand within it. When spoken with sincerity, these words become like anchors that prevent you from being swept away by fear. They work not because they are magical, but because they remind the mind of truths it often forgets during panic. That you have faced challenges before, and that you carry within you the resilience to face this one too. Affirmations may seem small, yet their power lies in consistency. Whisper them silently to yourself during a storm, and they become lanterns, lighting a path through the darkness. Over time, as you practice them in both calm and stressful moments, they begin to settle deep into the subconscious. Then, in times of panic, the words arise almost on their own, as if an inner ally is speaking back to the fear. The repetition of positive statements creates a new pattern in the mind, one that strengthens courage instead of feeding despair. This practice is not about denying reality or pretending that everything is easy. It is about choosing the kind of inner dialogue that supports rather than destroys you. In doing so, you discover that the heart steadies itself not only through breath and body, but also through the words you choose to carry inside. The seventh approach is, it is unrealistic to expect yourself to remain calm in the middle of chaos if you have never trained for it in moments of peace. And this is why practice before the storm is the seventh and perhaps most essential approach. Just as a martial artist does not wait for the fight to prepare, you cannot wait for panic to arrive before learning how to steady your mind. Daily practices like meditation, deep breathing, mindful walking, or even short moments of silent reflection act as training grounds for your inner stability. They may feel simple, but with time they build resilience into your system so that calmness becomes your natural state rather than something you have to desperately search for. Each time you sit in meditation and observe your thoughts, you're rehearsing the same skill you will need when fear floods in: the ability to watch without reacting. Each time you breathe deeply in stillness, you are programming your body to remember how to regulate itself when tension rises. These practices create an inner memory so that when the storm eventually comes, you are not meeting it unprepared. You are meeting it with tools you have already sharpened. The effort you invest in training during quiet times is what allows you to stand grounded when life becomes loud. Calmness under pressure is not a gift you stumble upon, it is a discipline you cultivate day after day until it becomes a part of who you are.